Welcome to Automated Mobility, the people behind the wheel. In this podcast series, we get to know the experts working in the field of automated mobility. What drives them, and how do they think their work contributes to a better mobility system? I am your host, Henriette Cornet, and I am the coordinator of SHOW, a European project testing automated vehicles in real life. SHOW is led by UITP, the International Association of Public Transport. Together with 70 other partners, we investigate a future where mobility is shared, connected, and automated. Today's episode, Delphine Grandsart from EPF, the European Passengers Federation. Hello Delphine, nice to have you with us today.
Hello Henriette, thank you for inviting me.
Let me introduce you to the audience. You are a research officer at EPF. And before coming to your role, the role that EPF has in the project in SHOW, I would like to start with getting to know EPF better. So what is it? And I checked a bit online that it is an international non-profit association similar to UITP, I would say. You can tell us more about it, but focusing on passengers and with the goal to improve their travel experience across modes. So it's what I've read before coming here. Tell us more about it. So what passengers, what is meant with this seamless travel experience, which modes are targeted? So tell us more, please.
Okay, so the European Passengers Federation, just the name itself, it says really what we are. We represent the passengers at EU level, and this means really all passengers, so not of one specific mode, but really all modes. So it's from long distance, air, rail, bus and coach, but also we consider urban transport and even first and last mile solutions, because in the end, as we all know, we are all passengers at some point. It's really an end-to-end journey. So your journey starts when you leave your house and it ends when you arrive at your final destination. And often this involves more than one mode. So this is why we find it also important to try and achieve a more seamless travel experience, because that's what people have when they travel by car. They just enter their car, their GPS takes them where they want to go, and it's super easy. And so ideally, we would like to have a similar user-friendliness and ease of use when people would like to travel in a multimodal way.
Mm-hmm. I see. So what does it mean from an association point of view? How can EPF help this travel experience to get better? So how are you structured, and what's your action, so to say, to improve this travel experience?
Yeah, so EPF itself is active at EU level. So we are very active we are very much involved in all kinds of policy topics like passenger rights, but also multimodal digital mobility services. It's a new initiative by the Commission. And in general, there's a lot of efforts being made at EU level to make multimodal travel more convenient and a more easy choice for people. So that is what we do at EU level.
It means, for example, you will give advice for new regulations, or what does it mean concretely being active at policy level? I think for people not active in this bubble.
Well, every time the Commission intends to launch a new regulatory initiative, there is a lot of public consultations, there are impact assessment studies, there are stakeholder consultation activities, workshops, interviews, etc. So this is really a long process, and all kinds of stakeholders are being invited to express their views in this process, and we are really one of them. So we take up this role quite actively. And for example, right now we have the Multimodal Passenger Mobility Forum. It's a new stakeholder forum launched by the Commission recently to really discuss how we can make multimodal digital mobility services a reality, basically, and more attractive to users. So there we are also really active. There are some subgroups, and one of them is led by EPF together with BUC, the EU-level consumer representation. So this is an example of what we do. We also have had several reviews of passenger rights regulations in the past years. And again, there we are also very active to express our views, what we think is needed to improve the existing regulations, what the shortcomings are, and just to make sure that passengers' views are adequately being taken into account. Because in the end, the end user is always the weaker side of the contract, because we are alone, but on the other hand, we are also many, so we are important. So this is what EPF does, but of course this is at EU level, but at national level and regional level, our members are active. So this is also really very important.
Who are they? Who are these members?
So our members are also passenger organizations representing really the end users of public transport in their country or in their region. And some of our members are also umbrella federations like EPF. So they have, for example, in Germany, there are several departments of ProBahn, for example. And we have the same in Denmark, where we have Passagerpulsen, who also has organized several passenger councils across the country. And they really, their members are then often end users. So there's then the direct link. Our members are organizations, but our members' are often, not always, but often the real passengers. And so they really directly interact then with national or local authorities when public transport is being planned, for example, the schedules or the routes, new legislation as well, passenger advisory boards, things like that.
And when you say the passengers, I can imagine, and because it's also our approach in show and when we are working on a mobility project, is to consider all passengers. And is it something that you look at EPF to be sure that, let's say, you don't address only the commuters, but all kind of people?
Yeah, this is really an important point because, like you mentioned, and also from UITP side, I guess, that the focus is very much on commuters in public transport, which makes sense in a way because, there are... This is also what causes congestion if commuters take their cars. So we want to attract them to public transport. But on the other hand, these are not the only users. So, and every user is different. Well, we also have needs. We also have user needs that are universal, let's say. So we all want safe travel, affordable, comfortable, and so on. But still looking at different user groups, they might have different priorities. So it is really important to take into account and also to make sure that the people who need it most are also considered, like people with a low income, people with a disability need accessible public transport. Also, perhaps women is worth mentioning because they tend to have a bit different travel patterns from men. They are often the ones who take the children to school or to activities and to errands and so on. So they have more irregular travel patterns that are more often outside the peak hours. So they need a little bit other schedules and so on. Elderly people, I can mention migrants and ethnic minorities because they perhaps have language issues as well. Children, and not to forget also people who lack digital skills, because we see a lot of developments that focus on digitalization and automation, which we will speak about later.
Exactly.
But it's important to make sure that we don't leave anyone behind and that we also think about how these developments can benefit users who are more vulnerable and who really need public transport because maybe they have no other alternative to travel. So we cannot lose them, and we need to make sure that they can get to wherever they want to go or need to go.
Yeah, that's. I think that makes very clear why EPF is in the project and why we really need, such approach in the project, so that when we develop automated vehicles, we are sure. I really like the way you formulated it. So we are sure no one is left behind. So we are sure everyone can use the system and it can benefit most of the citizens. Going more now to your role, to what you are doing. So what do you do at EPF? So how many? You're a small team, right? I understood that.
Yeah. We are a small team, so we have only a few employees, but we do have a lot of extra hands, let's say, or minds that work along. We have our management board, which consists of representatives of our member organizations, basically. And we have also regular meetings with the member organizations. We have general meetings. We have also an annual conference. This year's conference was in Copenhagen just last week, so we were really happy to have one after 3 years live. This was really good to see everyone again. This is how we work. And what I do personally, I work on research projects like SHOW, which we will speak about. And in the past I worked on some others, obviously. And I also work on policy files like passenger rights, or as I mentioned, on multimodal digital mobility.
I see. Thanks. I would say let's go to the next chapter, so to say, of the episode, and speak a little bit about show. Meaning, so first, what I would like to mention to the audience is when I joined UATP, show was already there. I would say I did not contribute to the proposal writing. And what I could directly realize, to be honest, and I think we had this discussion before, this project is still very tech-oriented. There is a lot of technical developments, which I love because I'm an engineer, so I'm very happy to hear about vehicle developments, like everything about vehicles, infrastructure, connectivity, and all these topics. So I'm quite excited about it. But there is this social aspect that, for me, need more focus. I mean, like I would wish a project to have really a larger focus of users. Maybe also at the end I would like to hear some advice from you. How projects should have more of this user engagement. But still, despite the fact that show is very technology oriented, there is this user engagement strategy in it. And I think that's very, very important. And with everything that will come in the coming years, all the vehicles now running on the road and everything, we will have more and more interaction with the passengers, with the citizens in the city. And I believe that this strategy would be even more important. So, can you tell us a bit what is this strategy in the show project? What are the plans to interact with the users, with the citizens? What has been done already? So future plans, so a bit in a general view on the user engagement strategy in the show project.
Yep. So I completely agree that user engagement is important. We have all these technological developments, and the question is, how much technology do we need, and what's in it for the end users, and what's in it for society as a whole as well? So it's important to ask these questions. And in show, indeed, there's a lot of technical focus, which is normal because we are still developing everything, and there are issues that we are confronted with.
Yeah, we need the mature technology.
So without having this technology, I mean, then we cannot use it. But I think it's good to involve the end users already in an early stage, so they can also give feedback on how it is right now, even if we have not reached the ultimate level of maturity that we are aiming for yet, because then there's still possibilities to adapt and take into account the feedback. So this is, I think, really good. In show, what we are responsible for the overall user engagement activities. coordinating them a little bit and monitoring them, and where possible, supporting the show demonstration sites in their engagement strategies. So for us, we developed some guidelines to help the sites develop such a strategy. And I think there are a few important steps to consider. First of all, I think we need to know who we are dealing with. So who are your end users, and also who are your stakeholders, which is different for each site. We have some show sites that are a hospital site, for example. So then we have the employees of the hospital, but we also have the patients. We have, for example, business sites. We have first and last universities. So there are really different scenarios, and in each scenario we can think of different end user groups, and also different kinds of stakeholders, for example, then the businesses in this area, the university, the hospital, and so on. So this is the first step, I think. Really think about who is involved, who are the potential users of this service, and reach out to them and explain what you are trying to do. And in show, we have the demo boards in almost all sites, I think. And it consists of the main stakeholders at each site. So there are regular discussions. So I think this is really good. This is, I think, the first main step to take. And then, of course, there are different levels of engagement. So first step is really communicating about what we are doing. So this is more one way, I would say. So we inform end users about show. This is important, of course.
It's not easy, right? I mean, I feel always a bit complicated. I mean, if I feel it's always easier to talk to experts, so to say, than to people who really come from somewhere else. And I'm always amazed. I love doing this exercise, but I'm always amazed of the questions that came back, like people really asking, why are you doing this? Or do we really need this? Like really putting things in questions. Although in the project, we take it for granted that we want this technology, and confronting with the end users help us remind, okay, do we really need it? Like it helps to really refocus and to, exactly as you said at the beginning, I like it to say like, what is the real benefit for the society, for the user? But what I wanted to say is it's very hard to communicate to users. I don't know if you have techniques or way to translate what we are doing into beneficial aspects for them.
I think communication, if you just consider it as a one-way street, as a first step towards end users, I think it's not that hard in the sense that you can use a lot of different channels. You can use posters and flyers, and you have cooperation often with the public transport operators who can also advertise the service on their website or at public transport stops and similar. I think the main challenge is to go a little bit further than that and have like a more two-way feedback loop and really ask
discussion, dialogues.
Also get really feedback, as you mentioned, from the end users. Like not only say, okay, we are doing this, but get the feedback from them. What are your thoughts on that? What are we missing? What do we need to take into account? And this is really a next important step in engagement, because otherwise it's just communication. It's not engagement, in my view. And there are many different activities that you can do, and we suggested also some of them to the pilot sites, and many will do similar. The sites. They are considering different activities. So we have, for example, just focus groups, which is kind of basic, but still very relevant.
What is this?
It's a group of people actually that you can choose depending on which outcomes, which input you would like. So it can be, for example, a group of people with a disability, a group of elderly people, a group of children, or a mix of all of them. And that you present some scenarios, or maybe you can even let people use the service first and then gather their feedback and have really an open discussion and gather their thoughts. So this is
So focus group. What else?
What else we are planning in show is what we call ideathons. So this is a bit more creative even. For me, it's a bit of a general term. It could be any kind of creative activity to gather some ideas from end users. And we did already one ideathon in show in 2020, I think, beginning of 2020. And then
virtual ideathon.
A virtual one, yeah. So unfortunately, we had to do it online due to COVID, obviously. But the idea was really to gather some ideas on how to solve certain problems that we might have, challenges really. So what we did was we presented these challenges to our audience, which was a mix actually of representatives of different stakeholder groups, including also end users. Like we had representatives of elderly people, of people with a disability, also of people walking, people cycling, because maybe they will not directly use the AV service, but they will be confronted with it on the road. So this is also important to consider their perspective. How will the automated vehicle interact with other vulnerable road users? So we presented these challenges, and for example, one of the challenges is that I think in general, one of the major challenges for AV in general is how to ensure that there's still someone who will help you if you need help. So where's the human factor? And so yeah.
So for example, you are in the EV alone, and there is a heartbreak, something like that, and you fall, or someone fall and hurt.
Yeah, exactly.
Him or herself, or an aggression, or this type of scenarios, right?
Yeah.
How do you get the help you need?
Yeah. And so there are different possibilities to solve this problem. For example, we thought about having like an emergency button, a screen also. Of course, then you have privacy concerns perhaps, but there's always someone in the control center monitoring what's happening with the AV.
Camera,
Even if there's no personnel on board. Which, by the way, right now, there is someone on board still. There are safety drivers because we are still testing. But, I mean, in the end, ultimately, it will be without assistance on board. So what we were thinking, for example, could also be like a mobile intervention team or person who can really monitor what's going on the AVs in a certain area, and who can really respond quickly and be there in a matter of minutes. You know, this would really be reassuring to passengers. But also, broader than just really the safety aspect, it's also about just knowing how to use the service. Like, how do I know when I arrive at my stop? How do I book the service? And so on. It seems quite obvious, but sometimes it's not. So for people who use public transport or AVs for the first time, we need to make sure that it's clear to everyone how to use it. Because also in show we see many differences. Sometimes you have to book it in advance. Sometimes you need to register if you want to use the service. Sometimes you need to pay, sometimes not. So this is just things that you need to know in advance. So we need to make sure that it's clear.
And this came during the ideathon, right? That was something the people worked together on.
Yeah, so the human assistance in case something goes wrong. This is a topic that we worked on. Another topic, for example, was capacity. So sometimes we have this in public transport in general. We have peak hours where we need a lot of vehicles and we have a lot of people traveling. And then at certain other moments, we have less people. And so one of the advantages of AVs could be that if you see there's not enough capacity, that another additional vehicle could be sent out to transport more people in a comfortable way.
Adapting dynamically to the demand.
Yeah, exactly.
The travel demand.
So this was also something we were thinking about.
Okay, so this get more technical, right? I mean, they were also interested in such aspect of having really a good service in terms of planning and...
Yeah, so it can be really such an ID gathering session can be about anything. If some show pilot sites experience certain challenges in Tampere, for example, temperatures are very low. There's a lot of snow. So maybe they will experience challenges that are different from other sites. And yeah, this is just one example. In the hospital site, you have people who are, sick probably, or you have a lot of people probably with reduced mobility as well, maybe temporary or permanent. So these are all things to take into account. And in the course of the project, we plan to do more of such events. So we will see what comes up, what the challenges are that the sites are experiencing, but we are inviting them to organize similar ID gathering sessions, so we can have creative solutions to such problems.
And so when once you have the ideas gathered at the end of this ideathon, what happened with these ideas?
Well, some of these ideas, maybe sometimes ideas can be really simple, and then it's easy to implement. It's just, giving better information, for example, or really adapting small things. And then we can just maybe implement it even during show in the project quite easily. And also interesting to mention is that in show we also plan hackathons, which are development actions really with it can be software solutions, but maybe also other kinds of solutions like business models or communication campaigns or whatever. But the focus is mostly on IT. And we had also one hackathon already, which focused on the same challenges that we had identified in the ideathon. So the idea is really to find solutions to the challenges that we identify, and where possible, also we would like to develop them further and really make a product out of it that we can then introduce also in the show marketplace. Maybe you can explain better than me what exactly that is. But the thing is that we would like to see some of these ideas also, if possible, implemented to some extent in practice ultimately.
Yeah, so directly in the demo site, on the demo site or so on, or as a separate service or product. It is what you meant with this marketplace, which can be, it's a bit like eBay for automated mobility services, something like that. So I will put the link in the description of the episode. You can have a look at this marketplace that will be open very soon. And you go there and you can kind of buy or order service for your own mobility system if you deploy automated vehicles or maybe similar services. So that's the idea, and this hackathon will help with that. So ideathon with passengers or passenger representatives, really focusing on the people that will use the service, creating ideas, and these ideas will be further developed within, or are further developed and have been, in hackathons from developers. So in hackathons there is no end users anymore, but it's really putting these ideas into concrete services and products.
Yeah, this is what we aim to achieve anyway. So,
but in parallel to this, there is also, I would say, the traditional kind of survey questionnaires and everything. Maybe you can also tell us about it, because of course we want to talk directly to people and organize workshops and citizens dialogues, but we also do the very common approach of I think everywhere, whatever we do with a hotel or a flight, we give feedback. This will happen as well, right?
Yeah, this will also happen. And we have actually a number of surveys going on in show, quite many actually. But the main two are firstly what we call the a priori acceptance surveys. So that's open to basically everyone who wants to give their opinion about automated mobility. And so we ask people what their thoughts are, whether they would be willing to use an automated vehicle and in which circumstances, and what their general opinion is about it, and maybe which barriers they experience. And so this is really open to the general public who have or have not used yet such a service.
I will also put the link in the description, and everyone is welcome to answer these questions, because for us it's always important to know a bit like what understanding, what perception do people have, even if they haven't used yet an automated vehicle.
Yeah, exactly. And then in addition, we also have the acceptance surveys, which will be conducted at all the show demonstration sites. But these then are really aimed at the people who are using the show services. So it's to get people's feedback on this specific service. And this is why there are also separate surveys, well, the same questions or mostly the same questions, but that we can see which responses came from which side, because they really refer directly to the specific service. And this is really to learn how people experience the service and what can be improved. This is we will conduct such surveys in the beginning of the demonstration and near the end of the demonstration, also to see if people's experience has changed in this period.
Yeah, maybe good to remind people that what is specific in the show project and quite unique is that we will have demonstrations. So this having AVs on the road for a long duration. So it's several months. So we hope really that people can get used to them, that they can be integrated to their everyday lives. That would be very nice if we can read that. So we will have probably this at the beginning, so this before-after, so to say, usage, where people start using it, have the first surprises maybe, but after a while they will tell us, how was it after a few months? So I'm really looking forward to it, to see how it goes, and this over not only as an entertainment, as some exhibition, sometimes you have such shutters, but like you use it for doing your groceries or going to school. That would be cool. If
indeed, it's it has been shown that making people more familiar with some new service, it also adds to user acceptance. So we will see and how far this also goes for the show services, whether we see a difference in the beginning or at the end of the demo. So what else to mention is that maybe some good examples from some show pilot sites of their engagement activities. For example, in Tampere again, they did a lot of good work with the accessibility working group, which is active locally. And so they really gathered people's feedback on how to make the service more accessible, which right now it's not really. But it can be simple things like, making sure that the seats are in the direction of of how the driving is driving. Of course, step-free access is an important issue, but also in general, you can also think about people with a visual impairment. How to make sure they can recognize the bus stop, they can recognize the button to ask for a stop, and things like that.
Okay, so moving on with our discussion, and we are slowly heading towards the end of this episode. I'd like to ask people their opinion a bit, their personal opinion, and since you are working in this field now within the show project and other projects, I'm sure. What do you think about automated mobility? So, do you see them around in an ideal city? Or maybe not in the city, but somewhere else. So what's your vision regarding the mobility of tomorrow, and are AVs part of it?
Well, we need to avoid always a technology push and really focus on, I'm repeating myself, what's in it for the end users and what's in it for society. So I think AVs can have benefits. They can make, in the future, mobility may be safer, more affordable, more sustainable, and so we can only support this when it's the case.
When deployed in the right way.
Yeah, exactly. So But then we need to also make sure that, for example, it is shared, because if people would use automated vehicles by themselves, then it will not really solve any congestion issues.
Yeah, we mentioned it in previous episodes already.
Yeah, it's kind of obvious, but we shouldn't forget, because otherwise we will create new problems, you know. So also accessibility is really important, I think, because as we see now, such shuttles are often deployed on short distances, which might change in the future, by the way. But for now, it's often to cover like 1 or 2 kilometers. And this is a distance you can just normally do on foot or by bicycle, unless you have reduced mobility. But if your shuttle is then not accessible, then, you know, it doesn't benefit the people who really should take it and need to take it. So these kind of questions really need to be asked before thinking about introducing automated shuttles. But yeah, it can have benefits, but yeah.
Let's see what the how it takes us and how we can contribute to it.
And also not to forget the human touch. Even though, you know, automation can bring a lot of benefits, people will just sometimes still want to speak to someone if they have really a question, if they have an emergency, if they need some help, if something happens, they fall. There can be a lot of situations where this is still needed, especially if you think about vulnerable groups. So this really is something to address. And the drivers could also take up, the people who are now driving public transport could perhaps also take up another role. In public transport, they could, you know, help people, assist them, just be present, see if there are any problems. Or I see this really as an opportunity as well to be more customer friendly. So a driver has to drive and focus only on driving, whereas if you can have someone, maybe not constantly, but occasionally on board, to see, okay, is everything all right with everyone? Then you can really have a more personal contact and really,
still a very human service. So that I like this vision of saying, okay, I think a world, you know, a future vision of a world only with machines around us, and we are kind of following what the machines are telling us to do and whatever. It's kind of a nightmare, a dystopia. So it would be nice if we can think of having automation really serving people and really still with a human touch. So having the benefit through more safety, and as you said, everything I'm just repeating, making it more affordable, but still with some human touch. I really like emphasizing it and having to keep it in mind when we are developing all these services. Well, thank you very much, Delphine. It was a very nice dialogue. I wanted to say I wish you good luck for all your endeavors in the project, but we will collaborate on that. I will support you as much as I can to have this dialogue, citizens dialogue happening, to be really present at demo events and connect with the end users and gather as many insights as we can. And I'm looking forward to getting in touch with the people, and we are very glad to having you on board in the project, and looking forward for further collaboration.
Okay, likewise. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to Automating Mobility, the people behind the wheel. This podcast would not have been possible without the support from the Horizon 2020 program by the European Commission under the grant agreement number 875530. Check out the links for the show project and other references in the description of the episode, and subscribe to our newsletter to stay tuned. Don't hesitate to share this episode or give us feedback to it. My name is Henriette Cornet from UITP, and I hope to see you at our next episode.